Went for a dip. It was fantastic. You know, they probably don't want you to video down there. I've spent some downtime just kind of chilling out. It's very nice because I don't do that at all. One of the reasons I implemented that 2 walks a week thing is because I'm always doing stuff. So sometimes people ask me like, okay, what's not on the show? What don't you show up on the show? And some of the things are like answering customer messages, because obviously I can't divulge that. Pretty much all the stuff with the filament I don't really show on the show because it's just the same thing every day. We're making like 6 to 8 rolls of filament, and there are 2 kilogram rolls approximately. And like, what am I just going to show that every single day? There are like organizational things. There's a lot that happens with the bubble wrap. Like it takes a long time to make an entire giant, they're called Gaylords actually, those big boxes. It takes forever to make an entire Gaylord full of bubble wrap. It's mostly automatic, but sometimes it gets snagged and you have to check on it and stuff like that. I guess I'm just saying all this to convey that it is extremely rare that I'm actually not really doing anything. With that being said, I think what my mind tends to do when I'm not really doing a task is I just start thinking about philosophical stuff. So as I've mentioned several times before, most recently a couple episodes ago, I used to work for a famous Christian apologist named Frank Turek. And I was thinking about the God of the Gaps argument. The God of the Gaps argument, I would say, is kind of one of the better arguments against certain aspects of theology. But I was thinking like there's always been this thing about it that just seemed like it's really missing something important. Little primer on the God of the Gaps argument, if you haven't heard it. It's the idea that like, we used to think the sun was God, and then we realized, it's a big ball of fire or whatever. Then we used to think like earthquakes were God, but then we learned about tectonic plates. And so it's like, let's just extrapolate that out to like all the things that we've figured out so far had like purely natural causes. So why would that stop? Why would that trend stop? Science is just continually showing itself to explain a bunch of things that were previously just spiritual or theological ideas. So maybe that's just how everything is. And so like when I was in the water, it kind of crystallized in my mind what I think this misses, even though on its face, it's a fairly compelling argument. Let's be honest. The God of the Gaps argument is looking at all these things that had been explained spiritually and then seeing that there's a natural explanation, and it's only noticing that. But what about all the things that science has never been able to explain and doesn't even seem like it's going to be able to explain? In other words, you can look at 2 different trends that both exist. The first one is like science explaining more and more things. So that's like this line. But then like, what about all the things that science has never been able to explain and like isn't even starting to head in that direction? Like you can look at weather systems and stuff, and yeah, science is doing a pretty good job with that. But what about questions like, what is love? Baby, don't hurt me no more. You literally can't explain that. No, but like, what is a good life? What is morality? What is virtue? How ought we to live? What is courage? What is honesty? All these kind of things. It's like, okay, how's science doing on that? And see, it would be one thing if it was like, well, I mean, those aren't like important questions, right? But they're kind of like the most important questions. It's like of the 2 camps, it's like, okay, we've figured out rainstorms and earthquakes, which I'm pretty glad we understand that. But yeah, show me the study that shows what goodness is. There aren't really studies or surveys that can concretely prove what things you should value in life or whether you should be a good person. You can point to like what the consequences of being good or being evil or whatever. I mean, you still have to define those things, and there's no study or scientific way to ascertain that. But you can look at the consequences and compare them if you want, but nothing's going to tell you which of those you should value. So yeah, it's like the God of the Gaps thing. I don't want to discount it because it's like, yeah, I mean, people were pretty superstitious about things for sure. But like, please just be honest. That's just all I would ask in a debate like this. Like, please be honest and just admit that there's a bunch of super important things that like science hasn't really gotten around to yet. And like in those debates and stuff, they just never do that really. They just kind of appeal to instinct or something, but like people have all kinds of horrible instincts too. It's not like people's instinct. Like, do we look at history and like, oh man, people have the best instincts? Yeah, you don't crack open a history book and be like, oh, everybody's good. Everybody's just so good. It's like, maybe there's a reason we came up with like traditions and theology and spirituality and like moral philosophy and things. Maybe these things exist for a reason. Maybe just like stuff you can do a survey or a blind study or some kind of like laboratory setting is just never going to sort these things out. Oh yeah, I meant to mention the Wi-Fi doesn't seem to work here, which I kind of don't mind. It's like I'm always internet connected. So yeah, that's why you're getting a rant right now.